So I usually do this in the last part of the very last class each semester that I teach. I've been doing this since 2010, I guess. So it's been about 15 years. And so I talk about my 7 commandments. The list has been growing, so it's about 8 now. And so these are some life lessons that I've learned over time, and that I'd like to share with you. And this talk is a reminder more to me as well as to all of you. And you can take what works and then reject what doesn't. So the first commandment is be happy always, no matter what. And don't let events, good or bad, disturb your state of bliss. Again, if the no matter what doesn't work, you can scratch that part out. If the always doesn't work, you can scratch that part out. If the happy doesn't work, you can scratch that out. Putting it aside, okay? depending on how it works. So there is you, and you have the smiley faces, the hearts, the sunshine, all the good words and the good events that happen in your lives. Okay? And then there are the thunderclouds and the not so nice words that people say to us sometimes, and the not so nice events that might happen in life. Okay? So you have all these good things happening and the not so nice things happening as well. And that's you at the center. And why I like to use the lotus as an image is because the lotus itself is very beautiful, but the lotus is often surrounded by murky water, right? So there is a lot of dirt, there's a lot of murk that's out there, and yet in the midst of it all, the lotus thrives, right? So all of us are like this lotus in a way, where we have all the nice things that are happening around us, and the not so nice things that are happening around us. And the trick is like, how do you navigate this process in this world as these things happen? So you have all the desirable words that are happening, and the good events that are happening, and then the not so desirable words and the not so nice events that are happening as well. And the idea is that how do you maintain your sense of equanimity through it all? So if we can get to a state where we are slightly more balanced, in the sense that when good things happen, also knowing that that's sort of impermanent because other things happen as well, and when the not so nice things happen, also knowing that too shall pass. So our life sort of goes around in these cycles, and trying to look at it in a more dispassionate manner, like watching a movie, right? When we are in a movie, we go through all kinds of emotions when watching a movie, but you know that that's a movie. And can we watch our own lives like watching a movie? And there's this person called Eckhart Tolle, and he wrote a book called The Power of Now. And in that book, what he says is that for about the first 20 or 30 years of his life, he went through a lot of anxiety and a lot of difficult times. And one fine day, he thought that that's too much. And he said that I can't live with myself anymore. And then he thought that, wait a minute, who is this myself that I cannot live with? And he sort of got a realization that inside of him, there's not one of him, but 2 of him. And if you think about it, right, that has been the ancient wisdom in various different faiths and a lot of other places where we have inside us 2 people, not 1 person. And of those 2 people, one part is the love aspect of us, or some people like to call it God. But that love part of you is the part that is shared. So which means that the love part in me, and the love part in you, and the love part in you, and you, and you, and you, right, is the same. And that love part is the same with every other person that you may not have met in the world as well. And that's the shared part that we all have. And that's because even if you go to a different country and you meet a person, even when you just smile, right, there's an instant connect. And even before you understand a person's language, I know one of you talked about the different languages that you love, right? And so even when we learn different languages or do not understand our languages, we still have a certain connect with people. And that connection comes because we have something shared. Even when you have relationships with people, friendships, all of that, there's a certain connection out there, and that's a shared connection. And it's like a shared thread between two people, or with more than two people, with multiple people, right? So that shared part is the love part. And then the other part that is there, the second person within us, is the ego part, which is also our mind. So our mind sort of makes us disconnected with people, and we want to see whether we're looking good, or whether we are, or whether that person likes me or not, and things like that, and all the things which make us slightly less confident, or sometimes things that we put on a resume, right? Things that you did on your portfolio, all the multiple achievements, the unique websites and all that. That's in a way trying to distinguish us from other people. But if you think about it, it's things which are not the present. Those are done, right? The present reality is that you are in this classroom right now, listening to me, and I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you right now, right? So it's this is the present reality. The past, even the assignment submission is sort of done, right? So that's the past. And so then you have the summer coming forward. So you have the love part, which is the shared part, and then you have the ego love, and then you have the ego part, which is the distinct part. So we have within us one person who separates us from every single person in this world, and then we have one person within us that connects us to every single person in this world. And so why it's difficult for us as human beings is because we have one thing that's trying to bring us together, and one thing that's trying to pull us apart, right? So let's say that you have a friend, and then you are close friends with the person, and then you have some argument or something, and then you suddenly you decide that the disconnect thing happens within that, right? And you're friends, and then you might feel, oh, we're not friends anymore. And then you said, okay, never mind, I forgive. And then you're friends again, right? So as soon as you forgive, you connect. So we have the power within us to connect or to reconnect, and we also have the power within us to disconnect. So it's which part of us do we exercise at any point in time. So it's like a seesaw. So when the love part is there, the ego cannot exist. Love is complete. But as soon as the ego comes in, the love part goes away. So it's about which part of you do you want to experience at any point in time. And that's what brings us together as human beings, and that's also what separates us from each other as human beings. And you see that playing around in different ways in different parts of the world, where we talk about polarization and people not getting along with each other and all that. And that's all because of the ego becoming bigger. But as soon as you decide to embrace and to forgive, the love part comes in, right? So here we have the external environment, where you have the words and the events and all these outcomes. And this external environment has a certain bearing on our happiness. Now you can think of it as a glass half filled with water. You can think of it as either a glass half full or a glass half empty. The empty part is the things that are empty within us, and the full part is the things that are full within us, in the sense that the good part's happening and the not so good things happening in our lives. And that's a constant. The things itself might change, but that's what happens at any point in time. There are some things that are not so good and some things that are good, right? So, but what is important is our internal reaction. So if you put on the happy pair of glasses, we'll see the things that are the full part in our lives. And if you put on the grumpy pair of glasses, or the unhappy pair of glasses, the stressed pair of glasses, the anxious pair of glasses, right? And then we see the empty part of the not so nice things in our lives. So this has a great bearing on our reaction in terms of what pair of glasses do we choose to wear at any point in time. And so this has a great moderating effect on this relationship between external events and our happiness. And if we choose to look at events in a more positive way, right? Now, there is a matrix called Russell's matrix. I think he came up with it in 1980 or something. And it's a matrix of human emotions. Maybe, let me see if I can Yeah, so basically the Russell's matrix um, talks about these two states. In the one state, you might have a positive state of mind or a more negative state of mind, and one where you are more excited and one where you are kind of more sad or tired. So when we are in a more excited state and a positive state of mind, that's when we are nice, we are friendly with people, and with two friends or two people can talk very nicely in that state, right? But if you're very excited but in a negative state of mind, that's when we can get angry or stressed and all of that, all the negative emotions come in. And if you are again in the negative state of mind, but kind of low, then you can get sort of depressed or sad or bored and all of that. And then if you have a positive state of mind, but with low energy, but you might be more calm and more relaxed, but not necessarily in the mood to talk to people and all of that, but you're kind of peaceful at a state. So a lot of emotions can be put within this kind of a matrix. There are more. Yeah, so this is also like all of these states, excited, happy are on one side, and then you have the angry, afraid on the other side, sad, depressed, and then calm and content. So mostly, but it's the main thing is to realize that people at any point in time, right? So you at any point in time as well will be in one of these four quadrants of the matrix. Most of the time, if you think of it, right? We either happy and excited and mostly positive, or we are calm and content, or we can be sad and depressed, or we can be afraid and angry, or more stressed. And what is also powerful to know is that every person that you interact with will be in one of these four states at any given point in time, right? So let's say you send a message. So I've also done some research on non-response behavior. So what happens when people do not respond to your text or messages? So one of the things that I write in the paper is also quoting this matrix, is that when you send a message and the person responds and you have a nice happy interaction, right? And let's say you send a message and the person does not respond, then the person could either be just kind of in a good state but not in a mood to talk to anybody at that point. And then, but if you are in a positive state, you understand, right? But if you are angry or afraid and stressed out, then you can get very afraid, very stressed with a non-response coming in at that point. But if you're in a more positive state, you'll just understand. And then, but if you are in if the other person is in an angry state or angry or afraid state over here, then the person might get upset or annoyed and all of that, right? And so this kind of a cycle happens not just in non-response behavior, but in terms of any sort of interaction that we have with people. So understanding this, that people are not necessarily good or bad, people are just going through things, and people are in one of these four states at any point in time, helps us understand people and helps us understand ourselves as well, that where we are with things, and then where other people might be at any given point in time. So yeah, so once we are able to look at things in a more positive manner, or the happy part of state in our lives, then we have a more positive internal reaction. And what we need to understand is that this is the part that we have no control over. What other people say to us, what other people do, what other events happen, right? And but the very powerful thing is to note that this is a part that we have complete control over. Most of the times we will not regret what other people have said to us or done to us. What we will regret is how we reacted when those things happened, right? So this is the part that we have control over, and that's the only part that we have control over. But why this part is powerful is because by having a more positive internal reaction, and then using that internal reaction to shape events in a more positive manner, we can actually help shape outcomes. So if somebody says something insensitive, at that point in time, rather than reacting right away, if we just excuse ourselves from the room, right, and not say anything at the moment, and then think through that day if you're still upset the next day. If you're able to forgive the person, then that's fine, right? But if you're still upset the next day, then you can write something in a more calm state rather than in a state of anger. And when you do that, because whenever we are angry, we are not really ourselves. We are ourselves surrounded by anger. And anger is an emotion in itself. So we are not that person. And emotions are things that we pass through. They're important, but they are transitory. They're like waves in the sea. So it was you as a person intoxicated with anger in a way at that point, right? So once we know that, so it's best to let that anger die down and then to react when you're no longer angry. But if you still feel angry or upset, that's the time when you can react. But it will be much more positive, and that way we can have a more positive reaction to events. The second commandment is again kind of difficult. It says, have zero expectation from every other person in the world and 100% from yourself. When you don't expect, you'll never be unhappy, and everything you get is a bonus. Okay? Now, it might be difficult to have this as 0 or 100, so you can change this to have most of the expectation from yourself, or the maximum expectation from yourself and minimum from other people, right? And that's because we cannot really shape or change what other people do. Like John F. Kennedy had once said that ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So in a similar manner, ask not what somebody else can do for you, ask what you can do for other people, right? So anytime you feel sad or not so happy at any given point in time, ask yourself one question, like, what activity are you engaging in? There are two modes that we can be in. One is a mode of giving, and one is a mode of wanting, right? And giving means that you are there in this world you're born with different gifts. We saw in your websites how many beautiful gifts that each of you has, right? Such unique things that you all have come up, that you as people and as human beings have. And that's just a brief showcase. It's not even the whole of who as persons that you are. And we each have gifts to give to this world. So when we are in this world only to give, you'll find that you'll never be unhappy. But at any point in time when you feel a little sad, you notice that you are in that mode of wanting to receive, or wanting to get. And in that want means that we are in that state where we feel that something is not there, right? And that's where it becomes like the neighbor's yard, the grass is green on the other side kind of a thing. And even if you look at Buddhism or any of the other places where people have thought about these things, one of the things is that desire is seen as something that brings suffering. And I've often thought about that. Why does desire bring suffering, and what's wrong with desire? I think there's nothing wrong with desire. Desire and pleasure seeking in a way. So there's nothing wrong with pleasure when it happens, but the seeking of pleasure is the one that brings unhappiness, because then it means that you're focusing on something that's not there at a point in time, right? So when we are in this mode of giving, we can just ask ourselves, am I in this giving mode or wanting mode? And as soon as you pull yourself out from that wanting mode to giving mode, I'm here in this world to contribute and to give, not to get, not to want, then you'll see that you'll be more powerful right away, and you'll be able to contribute. So there, you might be in that sad state for a few seconds, and then you have about a minute or 30 to 60 seconds to propel yourself out of that, get yourself out of bed, and then start doing something positive, because it's like you have to do like a rocket launch at that state to get yourself out of that state. Okay, so again, you have the expectation, which can be external or internal, from yourself, from other people. And external expectations can lead to a certain outcome. It often leads to work as well when we want other people to do things. But it may or may not happen the way you want it to be. So basing our happiness on external outcomes often has a negative reaction on our happiness. But the moment we switch that to our internal reaction, this has a much more positive bearing on our happiness, because this is the part that you can control. The third commandment is never compare with those around you. Just give in your 100% and don't worry about the results. So, when I was in high school in India, growing up in northeastern India, in the mountainous region over there, I used to often get 100 in math most of my years growing up. And if I'd ever lose 1 point and get 99, my sisters would ask me, like, where did you lose that 1 point? And then by the time I reached the 9th grade, there was a girl who came to my class and we both started competing. And I remember a time when I got like an 85 or an 86, and I was really happy because she had got an 82 or 83. And I thought that I got more than her, and then I was really happy, right? And then I thought that what's happened to me, I would feel bad if I'd lose 1 point out of 100, and now I'm happy just because I got 1 or 2 points more than the person that's competing with. And that's what comparison does to us. It helps us, it makes us settle for something much less than what we are capable of. And so we have to remember that the only person that we should compare with is ourselves, and try and become better and better versions of ourselves, or try to get to those stages where we want to get to in our lives. Because even though we are born in certain families, in certain counties, certain states, cities, or countries, right? We are all individuals born in this world, and we have a certain unique role to play in this world. So we have to recognize what our role is in this world. What is the song that we need to sing in this world? And we need to find that song, and we need to make our own contributions, because each of us are unique, no matter where we are born in, and who do we grow up with, and where do we live and work, right? So compare with where you want to get in life, compare with where you want to be tomorrow, in 2 days, in 2 years, in 20 years, right? And then be where you want to be. And even if you need to compare, you can read the biographies, autobiographies of people who have inspired you as leaders. And most of these people, you'll notice that whether it is a Mother Teresa or a Mahatma Gandhi or Nelson Mandela or any of these people, right? And the Pope recently died, and a lot of people are talking about how compassionate a person that he was, and how we made kindness as something popular amongst people. And there is a lot of so when we look at the people's life stories and the adversities that they go through, right? And then we notice that how they have been able to change their difficulties into something which made them shine amongst all the people. Not because they were extraordinary, because they were ordinary people who believed in themselves. So, given 100%, and don't worry about what happens, right? So again, the only part that we can control is our work part, not the results part. So once you have done your best, then what happens is the result is not really much of a concern after that. So again, comparison leads to external expectation, and which negatively affects our happiness here. And comparison also has a negative effect on our internal reaction, and which again negatively affects our happiness. And the fourth commandment is everything happens for one's own good. We get what is best for us. So I've been doing this talk since 2010. So I think after a year or two, maybe in 2011, 12, a student came to my office and she told me that I don't really agree with this commandment. And she said that, and I asked her why, and she said, horrible things happen in this world, and I can accept things as horrible. I don't need to be told that those were good things in order to accept them. Right? And I thought she had a point, in the sense that there are a lot of horrible things happening in the world, and life can be very harsh and difficult for a lot of people, right? But so each of these commandments that are there, you can think of them as mental models, or a lens, or a way of looking at the world. And we all have a different ways of looking at this world, right? But some ways of looking at the world make our lives harder or more difficult to navigate, and some ways can make it more easier to navigate. So whatever works for you, whichever way of looking at things work for you, we can pick those sorts of lenses, right? So some people like to call this as everything happens for a reason rather than for one's own good. But I can cite a few examples. When I was working in Singapore, I once worked for a bioinformatics company, and then we did a lot of good work in terms of, I was doing at that point in time XML and Java programming and all that, and we were working with large genomics databases. And it was really good work. I learned a lot in that process. The only problem was that for about 6 or 7 months, we did not get paid. The company was going through very hard times, and it eventually shut down. So the company got liquidated, and we didn't. A lot of employees didn't get paid in the process, and so I thought for a long time as to what good came of that, in terms of that experience. And then years later, when I finished my PhD and I was looking for faculty positions in the US, I met a professor called Jim Bofman, who was in a conference in one of the ASIST annual meetings. ASIST is the Association for Information Science and Technology, and Jim told me that at Simmons they were looking for somebody. They were looking for a faculty member, but they're also trying to start a new program in health informatics. So any experience in health informatics would be useful. And then when I applied for positions at Simmons, when I came for a campus visit, one of the meetings I had was with a faculty group across the campus who was trying to start a college-wide health informatics program. And in that meeting, in my talk, I was able to say how I had worked for this bioinformatics company, and then I had gotten all this experience and done all the work which was of interest to them. And otherwise, I would have been like any other candidate, but that made me stand out in something that they were also looking for, right? And so you don't know like what becomes useful like for 5 or 6 years down the line. Also, my wife is a physician, and she is a hematologist oncologist, and she did a medical degree in India, and then we got married, and we were in Singapore for a while, and then she was there for 3 years after we got married, and for 3 years she did not get a job in Singapore because Singapore did not recognize Indian medical degrees. So eventually, when she couldn't get a job as a doctor in Singapore, then she thought that she has to move to another country. So initially she thought of the UK, and then she started preparing for the US medical licensing exams. And then after 2 years of exams, she got into a medical residency, and eventually she finished her residency and got a job in Boston, and now she's a cancer doctor. But had she gotten a job in Singapore, had they accepted a medical degree, I would not be here right now giving this talk to you all. I probably would be doing something in Singapore or teaching there, right? So because she didn't get a job in Singapore, it led her to being trained in one of the best medical programs across the US or in the world, and then paving the way for me to look for a job in the US over the years, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is that when we go through difficult phases in our lives, those difficult phases is like the polishing of a diamond. They make us, the more you polish and cut and polish a diamond, the brighter it shines, right? So it prepares us for the times that makes us shine much more as human beings. And we don't really understand them at the point in time because it's really hard when it's happening, right? But like there are signs in a hospital which say that this too shall pass, right? So it's knowing that difficult time will be over as well. And once we're able to persevere through it, then all of these difficult phases are actually phases of growth in our lives. It makes us go in directions that we're meant to go at those points in time. So again, when we have all these events that are happening, which lead to some sort of an internal reaction, so here time is a factor in the short term or the long term. So in the short term, things may not make sense, right? And things may seem hard. But in the longer term, a lot of things do work out. Right? And the fifth commandment, which I would think is the most important, is that live in the present moment. So don't worry about the future, it will take care of itself if you take care of the present. And don't worry about the past because we can never change it. So if you think about it, right, the past is gone, it doesn't exist at all, right? And the future doesn't exist as well because it's only in our minds. We don't know what's going to happen later on, right? So just think of how much of our time do we spend in imagination, either about the past or the future, right? The only reality is each moment that you are living, whether it is working or playing or eating or sleeping or studying or taking the tea, right? Anything that we are doing, that is the present moment. So at this moment, right here, right now, all of you in this room are the most important people in my life because that's a present reality, right? 20 minutes later, maybe you'll be taking your transportation back home or doing other things and all that. Some of you might take classes with me again, maybe some of you may not, right? So we don't know whether we meet again and in what way or not. But in every given moment, the people you are with or the activity that you're engaged in, that is the most important thing. And if you remember that, we will always be able to live our lives fully and completely at any given point in time, no matter what has happened in the past or no matter what will happen in the future. But the present moment is a gift that we have all the time. So here we have these events, which are the external environment, and then you have this awareness either about the past or about the future or the present. So the past awareness might bring us nostalgia or might bring us some guilt, or the present future awareness might either excite us or even make us anxious. But the present awareness, right? So being situated in the present is the most important thing. So if you look at many of the religious traditions across the world, they have things like various forms of meditation, or they take a beat and all of that. Or even when you go to a church or a temple to pray, right? What you're really trying to do is bring your mind to the present moment at that state. So all of these activities are centered around bringing our mind to the present moment. Even when we watch a movie on YouTube or listen to your favorite piece of music, right? What we're trying to do is that getting into a state of flow where your mind can not worry too much about what's going to happen in the future, and you enjoy what's happening in that moment. So all the activities that we can do that bring us in a state of flow is where you are more in the present. So that's one thing to remember. Even if you forget everything else, just to remember that there's nothing more important than the now, the present moment at any point in time. So having this present awareness brings about a much more calm internal reaction, and that has a bearing on our happiness. And the sixth commandment is that you can do the impossible. Remove the dust that's cloaking the power within you, and let your inner spark glow. And whenever we see greatness around, we see people who have removed more of this dust. So any of these people who we call people that we might admire, right? And we see some of them in our daily lives, we see some of them as characters in history, right? Are these people who have somehow felt that need to stand up for what they're capable of and to remove this dust. So it's not that any person is any more special than the other. We all have that same lotus within each one of us, right? We all have that same love that's shared within that we share with every other person. So it's just that all the anxieties and doubts that we have that I may not be good enough, and right, that we sort of build around us, and this is more of the dust covering. Some people might remove some of that, and the people that we see shining in the world often and making people smile, right, are the ones who have been able to remove more and more of this dust. Right? So that's the only, it's just a cleaning job actually. Right? If you think about it, there's nothing much. We all have that same thing within each one of us, the same possibility, the same capability to be able to do that, to do whatever we want to achieve, right? So if we are able to remove more and more of the dust, then we have a more internal expectations. We get into this mode of giving and contributing to the world, and we have more confidence, right? And this leads to work, and this leads to happiness. And the sixth commandment is that for every other person that you see, meet, and talk to, imagine that you're seeing, meeting, and talking to God. The essence is to identify with each person in the world as your own. So in this case, what's really happening is that you can replace the word God with one person who is your favorite in the world. It can be your parent, your mother, your father. It can be your friend. It can be your spouse or your partner, right? So anybody can be somebody's child, right? It's anybody who you think is your favorite person, and the thought of that person makes you smile. So every time, now imagine, now take that person and replace everybody's faces with that person's face, right? So imagine how nice the world is, right? So no matter where you go, you're not anxious or upset or underconfident and all, because you see that same love everywhere you go. And for this one person, even when this person is mean to us or not nice to us, right? We understand, saying that, oh, maybe this person is having a bad day. But for somebody else who does that, we get very quick at judging. So the way we are able to forgive the people that we love, if we can forgive the people, every other person, the world becomes a much nicer place. So again, when you see this world in this manner, right, the world starts looking like this, right? That you see more of a sense of oneness in every person across the world. But what that does is that leads us to having a lack of fear from anyone and having a sense of identification with every other person that we see, meet, talk to, and interact with. And that leads to self-confidence. So let's take all the models again. So this is the first one, or the first commandment of being happy all the time. And this was the first commandment, the first model. And then we take the second model of having no expectations, and we kind of bring those two together. And then we take the third model of not comparing with other people and giving in our 100%. And then we take the fourth model of having no worries and everything happening for good. And then we take the fifth one of living the present moment, and then we combine that together. And then we take the sixth one of removing some of the dust and having a self-belief. And the seventh one of seeing everyone as a part of us. So once we combine all these models, what we notice is that as soon as we combine, start seeing everybody as a part of us, this whole external environment collapses, because everything becomes internal. There's no external, because you're starting to see everybody as a part of you. But what it really means is that happiness is you. Thank you. Okay, so this was the presentation portion. A few years ago, I've actually started writing a book on it, which is kind of a work in progress, but it has, it's called Modeling Happiness, and the 8 lessons I've learned. So there's one more commandment which I didn't talk about. And so yeah, so this is what it says: to the reader, you're beautiful, you're enough, and this book is just a mirror. So here you have all these commandments over here. But there's one more commandment called not blaming, which I added later, and which is again very hard. What it says is that do not blame anyone for any behavior whatsoever. Think of how hard it is. How easy it is for us to blame people for no matter what happens, right? As soon as something happens, we always look for who we can put this blame to, right? And the moment we stop blaming, what it will do is that it will force us to look at ourselves and saying that, okay, no matter what the person has done, how can I react to it? How can I change that negative action or whatever from that person into something positive from my side? And when we do that, we bring in more power to ourselves in the process. But if we are saying that, oh, that person did this to me, then we remain in that victim mode. And Eckhart Tolle calls it like a pain body. He says that we keep nurturing the pain body in our minds and trying to play the victim all our lives, and we don't let that victim mode go away. But as the pain body starts dissolving, we reclaim some of the power in the world. So yeah, so it's the book has other things, and the first part talks about happiness, and then what is happiness. So yeah, the things like how our human lives are filled with. We're like a dewdrops, like, because as soon as when we lose people, we say that, oh, this thing went away, like it's so shocking that this person died so soon or something. But that's not so shocking, because every person will die. And to realize the impermanence of it all. And once we think of the impermanence, then we are able to live our lives much more proactively. I also talk about the marketing of happiness, or the toxicity of happiness, and that's where I say that we have to be more careful and be more forgiving of people who might be going through hard times. So I wrote this poem called A Bucket Full of Happiness, and I wrote here that I wrote this in May 2021 during the COVID pandemic, when a lot of people are going through a tough time. So the poem says, I feel like taking a bucket full of happiness and pouring it all over you. You, yes, you who is dealing with pain. I want to show you the cherry blossoms and the rainbow. I want to teach you how to talk freely, to laugh heartily, and to sing your heart out. I want to hug you tight and tell you everything will be alright. You who is dealing with loss, you who is a prisoner of your own words, you who is holding on to grudges, you who is letting a judgment banish a loved one from your heart, you who is weighed by hurt feelings and injured relationships. I want to help you forgive and embrace and to heal and mend. I want to help you untangle the knots of your heart. You who is overworked, whose knees give in to the weight of expectations, you who is grappling with chronic pain, you who bravely gets up to face one more day, you who feels tired with years catching up, with thinning hair and wrinkling skin, or not the best of health. I want to make you a bench by the flowers and the stream, and for you to rest and rejuvenate, and sit by your side to make you feel better. You who is tired of faking and pretending, and putting on a mask to look strong, I want to tell you that I won't judge you and I will protect you, and that it's okay for you to be vulnerable and to be seen. You who has no arms coming forward to help you, I want to tell you that you're enough. You who is tired of waiting and waiting some more, you who is feeling misunderstood and unloved or abandoned, I want to tell you that love will nourish you and love will keep you together. So cheer up, my friends, sit up and smile. It's a bright new day, ready to greet and love you. If there's no one else for you, I'm right here now for you. You see, so the book has a lot more chapters in it, but I just wanted to show you a little bit. Right, and it's still a work in progress. So thank you, and wish you all the best and wish you happiness always.